Honestly, it's been like 6 years.
It was fairly recently. It was like about a year or so ago, maybe a bit longer.
Some time ago.
I don't cry that often. I'd say last summer.
I don't think I'm emotionally capable.
I can't remember actually.
Hello everybody and welcome to Blurred Lines, and this is our second episode of John Cabot University's TV show, and it's our forum on gender biases and double standards. My name is Sophia and I will be your host. Today's episode is on toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity describes narrow, repressive type of ideas about the male gender role that defines masculinity as exaggerated masculine traits like being violent, unemotional, sexually aggressive, and so forth. With further ado, let's introduce today's guest. We have Kurt, Joe, and Jade. So let's get started. When was the last time you guys cried?
Last time that I cried was about a week and a half ago.
Solid.
Like last night.
Yeah, I mean, just like stress-induced crying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not necessarily emotional crying. That hasn't happened in a long time, I don't think.
So a few days ago, on November 19th, was the International Men Day, and it's trying to be an equivalent towards the March 8th's International Women's Day. So do you believe it's necessary, and how can it actually be beneficial to society and for men without becoming a mere opposition to feminism to have a day like this, an international day?
I personally think that it's a good thing. I don't think that anything should be taken away from women and Women's Day, because they definitely should have their voices be heard as well. But there's a lot of issues that don't get brought up about men, and the fact of like different mental disorders, job market, things like that, abuse, that some of these things get overshadowed because there's a higher number of it happening maybe to women, but the percentage of it that's happening to males makes the male counterpart feel totally left out. And I think it's good to have that also be highlighted upon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and I think that as long as it's done in a way that, like you said, doesn't take away from International Women's Day, and it doesn't become, like, International Men's Day doesn't become this meninist sort of, like, men's rights campaign, where it actually becomes a place where men can be human and not the stereotypical role that men are kind of forced to play in society, where we're not allowed to say, like, yeah, I'm having a rough day right now, or I'm having like some mental issues that I can't really focus on or even really enunciate like with words, because at least, I don't know if it's for everyone, but for me, I know that I have a hard time expressing myself with words because it's just not in my vocabulary. Like, I don't have the words in my head to exhibit what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me to be able to do that. And I think that if there were more things like, or more open forums like International Men's Day, where we can get together and have those sort of conversations and try to figure out, this is what I'm feeling, these are the words that I can use to describe what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. I feel like that is what it could be, as long as it doesn't, take away from the fact that there are a lot of issues that women face that,
Especially just creating that safe space where you can get your feelings out and everyone can talk about these things that are pretty prevalent and not addressed as much, I feel like, with men. It's a little bit harder to even get men to talk about these things oftentimes. But there is a movie that just came out in 2018, and it's a French film called I'm Not an Easy Man, and it's a world where all gender roles are switched, and you see the men being more effeminate and women as like playing the manlier roles, and this film just kind of tackles these things and really makes you think. So now we're gonna watch a little clip from this movie.
Attends, dans une société aberrante. Tu sais quoi? Je me demande si t'as pas un problème hormonal. Mets un petit complément là, c'est plus possible. T'en penses quoi? T'as raison.
So, what's your own experience with toxic masculinity, or have you witnessed it, or?
I mean, at least for me, given that I'm from a military family, every time you're told to be a man in any situation, and I have an 8-year-old brother, so I get to see him now that I'm 11 years older than him. I can kind of see how my stepfather pushes that idea onto him, and that mentality of you have to be the strong person. If you show your emotions, people are going to use that as a vulnerability against you. And I can see how, like, as a young boy, he wants to express his feelings, but he doesn't want to, A, disappoint his father, and B, he doesn't really know how to express himself. So I can see how the toxic masculine ideas of being like, you have to oppress your feelings, you can't be open because people are going to see you as weak, really do, like, disintegrate what a young kid has the potential to be.
I mean, I just have a banal example that blows into my mind. Like, every time that I was with, when I was a kid, I had mostly female friends. And if my parents were around, my dad, I remember it would get cold in New York, and I'd have like a jacket, and one of my friends maybe had a smaller jacket, and he'd say to me like, "Oh, Joe, why don't you give, one of your friends a jacket or whatever?" And my friend would get all red because she's like, "I don't need a jacket. Just because I'm a girl doesn't mean like, I need your help for everything, or I'm any weaker than you are." So just kind of put everyone in an awkward situation. It's happened multiple times in my life.
It's almost that expectation.
Yeah, and it's just like a stupid thing that people don't even think about, but it's still like, driving the factor home.
Right.
Yeah, I know, because I worked at a gas station this past summer, and the amount of just awful things that I heard from the guys who would come in, and there was this one instance in particular that really got to me. It was this father and 2 sons, maybe 9 and 10 years old. They come in and they start, going around the gas station being rowdy, as, people are bound to do. And this waitress comes in and just pays for her gas and goes out to her car and starts pumping her gas. And as she's walking away through the doors, all 3 of them, the father and the 2 sons, press their faces up against the glass and start ogling her as she's walking away. And I'm like, excuse me, that's not super cool. And they didn't bother saying anything to me. And as they left, one of the 9 or 10-year-old kids, started walking backwards, with a swagger, and started, whistling and grabbing his crotch toward the girl who was just sitting in her car trying to, pump her gas, for God's sake. And it got to me that it was, that behavior is not just innately masculine. That had to be taught by someone to these kids. And if it's happening to just a random stranger, I can only imagine what's happening to their mom or their stepmom back home, where this behavior has become so normalized that they can feel like they can do it to just random people on the street.
When in this movie, so as they switch their gender roles, do you think you'd be able to act more effeminate or girly without feeling like a man?
I mean, I'm gay, so I guess it's a whole nother discussion. But I don't think that it's a matter of being more feminine or manly. I think it's just being yourself, just however you feel comfortable in being, whatever that may be. It's really just society that says, and each culture has a different idea of femininity and masculinity. So it's really just up to you, I think. Just be yourself. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I would have kind of a hard time because, I've grown up, as have most guys my age, in this world where, you have figures like Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these, super buff, manly guys that are just, guns a-blazing. Rambo! Don't care about the consequences, just I get what I want done when I want it. It would, not saying that I am that way, I'm saying that it would be harder for me because of the way that I've been socialized to accept more what is considered feminine qualities about myself rather than, the way that I am, or the way that I've been socialized, the way that I've been brought up.
I think Joe had a good point though, because for instance, in the States, a lot of kids in our generation grew up looking at Chuck Norris, Jackie Chan, all of these people who were, heroic characters, and you had to be this muscly guy who always saved the day. Whereas in Korea, the whole culture there of being a man is to cry, and it is to be open. And it does still have its reserves. It's not perfect in any sense, but there to be masculine is to be able to cry. A lot of men actually wear makeup in Korea. It's a normalized thing. And I mean, it is still recent there, but you can even see that in the United States, they're not even close to being that way, you know? And I think it's, like Joe was saying, not necessarily like being more feminine or being more masculine. It's just to be yourself, you know?
Right. Well, that's all the time we have for today, and thank you so much for being here and giving your opinions. And thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe and share this video. Thank you.